What if the next chapter of your life isn't meant to be figured out but faithfully walked through? Have you ever wondered why God allows us to walk into the unknown with empty hands, yet full hearts? Sometimes, the scariest moments, the moments with no map, no plan, and no answers are the very spaces where God does His greatest work. Have you ever felt like you're standing on the edge of a cliff, staring into a vast unknown, asking yourself, what now? That moment caught between what's behind you and what you can't yet see ahead can be one of the loneliest and most confusing places to stand. We've all been there. That strange in-between space where the past feels distant and the future feels invisible. The weight of not knowing what's next can sit heavy on your heart. But right in the center of that confusion, one unshakable truth remains. God knows what's next for you. Life rarely hands us a clear roadmap. Instead, we're often asked to walk through seasons where visibility is low and the path ahead is covered in fog. We can't see what's around the next corner. We can't predict the timing, the people, or the circumstances that await us. And that uncertainty, it can be paralyzing. So we scramble, we overthink. We try to piece together every puzzle in advance. We attempt to plan each move, trying to seize control over something we were never meant to master. But friend, let me gently remind you, you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need to carry the pressure of perfect foresight. It's okay to step forward unsure of what's next, as long as you're confident in who walks with you. We exhaust ourselves, trying to eliminate all risk, all mystery, all uncertainty. But here's the truth. God isn't surprised by any of it. He's not alarmed by your confusion. He's not scrambling because you don't know the next step. The unexpected doesn't catch Him off guard. In fact, it's in the unknown that His power is often most clearly revealed. Take a moment to reflect though. Many times, has God led you through something that made no sense in the moment, only for you to look back months or years later and say, that was exactly what I needed? We've all had those moments of clarity, where hindsight revealed His faithfulness. And if He's done it before, He will do it again. When you don't know what's next, rest in this. God does. And not only does He know, but He's already gone ahead of you to prepare the way. Now here's something powerful to consider. The unknown is not your enemy. We often treat uncertainty like a villain is, if peace and purpose can only be found in having everything figured out. But what if that's wrong? What if the very thing we try so hard to avoid, uncertainty, actually the space where God's glory shines brightest? As human beings, we crave clarity. We want to predict, we want to control, we want guarantees before we take the first step. But God isn't asking you to walk by sight, He's calling you to walk by faith. And faith, by its nature, thrives in the unknown. In those moments when we surrender our plans, let go of our tight grip, and dare to trust, we create room for God to move in unexpected ways. He doesn't need you to see the entire path. He just needs you to take the next small step in obedience. Think of Abraham. God asked him to leave everything, his home, his comfort, his security, and go to a land he had never seen. Imagine the fear in his heart, the questions, the uncertainty. And yet, Abraham moved not because he knew what lay ahead, but because he trusted the one who called him forward. And God didn't fail him. The unknown became the very ground where God's promises took root. So today, if you're standing at the edge, staring into the unfamiliar, take heart. Don't resist the unknown, embrace it. Because in that sacred space of, I don't know, God is waiting. Waiting to show you His heart, His power, and His plan in a way that will forever change how you walk through life. You may be sitting there right now, feeling like life is an unfinished puzzle pieces, scattered, edges missing, picture unclear. And that's okay, because you're not the one holding the box. God is. And His design is far more beautiful than anything we could ever imagine. We talked about stepping into the unknown, trusting that God is already ahead of us writing the story even when we can't see the pages. Now let's talk about something just as powerful. His perfect timing, even when it feels painfully silent. So often, under the weight of life's expectations and external pressure, we begin to believe that if we haven't figured it all out yet, we're somehow behind, as if we've missed some invisible deadline. But trusting God's plan isn't about checking all the boxes or reaching a certain milestone. It's about resting in the quiet confidence that God has already mapped out your future, even when the path seems blurry. Here's the truth. God's plan for your life does not require your understanding it. It requires your obedience. We want the entire picture. We want details, clarity, signs. But God's invitation is simple. Take the next step in faith, even when the road disappears into fog. Look at Joseph in the Bible. His life was anything but easy. He faced betrayal from his own brothers, was sold into slavery, thrown into prison unjustly, and left forgotten. His journey was marked with pain, confusion, and what seemed like endless setbacks. But through every twist and turn, God was silently orchestrating a bigger plan Joseph couldn't have imagined at the time. It was only when Joseph looked back, years later, that he could finally connect the dots. Every moment of hardship had a purpose. Every delay had divine meaning. His suffering wasn't wasted, it was preparation. So today, I want to speak directly to you. Your life is not a random collection of highs and lows. It is a carefully written story authored by God Himself. Even when it doesn't make sense, even when your heart aches with waiting, God is unfolding something far greater than you could design on your own. How many times have you asked, "Why is this happening right now?" Or, "Why am I still waiting?" We struggle with God's timing because it almost never matches ours. We want progress instantly. We pray for miracles today. But God doesn't work in a rush. His ways are not our ways, and His timing is not random. It is precise, intentional, and always right on schedule. Think about King David. He was anointed by God as king, but he didn't immediately take the throne. Instead, he spent years in the wilderness, running, hiding, fighting, and learning what it meant to truly depend on God. His waiting season wasn't a punishment. It was a process. It was God's divine training ground, shaping David into the kind of man who could carry the weight of a crown. So if you're in a waiting season now, don't resent it. Don't assume you've been forgotten. Waiting is not wasted. God's delay is not His denial. It may be His way of preparing your heart, sharpening your character, and building the strength you'll need for the very blessing you're praying for. You are not behind. You are not late. You are exactly where you need to be. And when the time is right, God will open doors that no one can shut. Still, it's hard when we pour our hearts into prayer, asking for very specific things. A job, healing, restoration, provision, direction. We're convinced we know what we need. And we ask with faith, expecting God to respond in the way we imagined. But what happens when He doesn't answer the way we hoped or? When His answer is simply, "Not yet"? This is where deep trust is forged. Because here's a powerful truth. God knows your needs better than you do. He sees the full landscape of your life, the parts you can't yet see. And while you're focused on immediate answers, He's working on eternal solutions. Sometimes, we mistake our desires for our needs. But God, in His infinite wisdom, provides not just what we want, but what will sustain us, shape us, and ultimately grow us. Remember what Jesus said. If you, being human, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Heavenly Father give to those who ask Him? God is not holding out on you. He's holding on to what's best for you until the right moment. Take the Apostle Paul, for instance. He asked God to remove a painful thorn from his flesh, something that deeply tormented him. But God said no. Instead, He told Paul, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." What Paul thought he needed wasn't what he needed most. What he truly needed was to experience the sufficiency of God's grace and the strength that can only be found in surrender. So when you feel like your prayers are going unanswered, when heaven seems quiet, when the door you've been knocking on remains closed. In the last part, we explored how God's silence often holds a deeper purpose, how what feels like delay is often divine preparation. Now let's go one step deeper. Even when God's answer doesn't come the way you expected, it doesn't mean He isn't responding. When things don't happen the way you hoped, when the door you were praying for doesn't open, or when the opportunity slips away, remember this: God knows exactly what you need when you need it. Sometimes, the things withheld from us aren't rejections. They are divine protections. What you may perceive as a no could actually be God's way of lovingly saying, "Not yet," or "I have something better." God sees your needs from an eternal perspective. He's not just interested in your comfort today, He's focused on your purpose, your growth, your future. And because of that, His provision will always be in perfect alignment with His plan for your life. He will provide what you need, precisely when you need it. Not early, not late, right on time. When you're walking through a season of uncertainty, it's easy to feel stuck, like your prayers are suspended in silence, or your breakthrough is dragging its feet. You might be glancing around at others, wondering why their doors are opening while yours remain closed. But here's the truth you need to hold close. God is preparing you for blessings beyond your current understanding. What you call waiting might actually be God's workshop. He is using every delay, every detour, every disappointment to carefully build the foundation for what's coming next. He never wastes a moment. Every second in the waiting room is packed with purpose. Think about the Israelites. They didn't wander in the desert for 40 years because God had abandoned them. No, He was preparing them. The promised land was already there, waiting. But they weren't ready yet. That wilderness journey, as painful and repetitive as it seemed, was shaping their faith, breaking their pride, and training their hearts to rely on God completely. Your promised land may be just around the corner. But first, God wants to ensure that you're ready not just to receive the blessing, but to carry it well. Sometimes He strengthens your character. Sometimes He teaches you patience. Other times, He's refining your desire, sifting out what doesn't belong so your heart can fully align with His will. You may not see it now, but in the unseen, blessings are being built. And they're being customized for you as you continue walking forward through the unknown. So don't give in to discouragement. Don't assume that silence means absence. God is active, working behind the scenes, arranging every detail, shaping your future even when you don't feel His hand. And when the time is right, when your heart is ready and your spirit is steady, He will pour out blessings that far exceed your imagination. So keep trusting, keep growing, because every step of preparation is positioning you for the breakthrough that's already on its way. And now, let's talk about the one thing that tries hardest to block your next step: fear. Fear is loud. Fear is cunning. It shows up right before you step forward. It whispers lies, telling you that the unknown is too dangerous, too uncertain, too risky. Fear wants to paralyze you. It wants to make you question your future, doubt your purpose, and second-guess every decision you've prayed over. But faith stands in the storm, not because the storm isn't real, but because it believes God is bigger than the storm. Let's be honest. Fear is part of being human. It's natural to be afraid of what you cannot see, to feel anxious when control slips through your fingers. But fear is a liar. It tells you that you're not enough, that you'll never make it, that the challenge ahead is too great. Faith, however, tells a different story. Faith reminds you that God is enough, that He has already gone before you, that even in weakness, you are strong because Christ is your strength. Remember Peter? He stepped out of the boat and walked on water toward Jesus. As long as he kept his eyes on Christ, he stood on the impossible. But the moment he focused on the storm instead of the Savior, he began to sink. That's what fear does, it drowns you. Faith, on the other hand, keeps you afloat. You don't have to know every detail of what's next. You don't need the whole plan laid out. All you need is enough faith to take the next step, believing that God is right there with you, even in the unknown. Fear will always say, "You're not ready." But faith will always whisper, "With God, you are more than enough." The fear of the unknown may try to keep you stuck, but faith in the one who holds your future will push you forward even when the picture isn't complete. So today, make the choice. Choose faith over fear. Step into the unknown with courage, knowing that God is already ahead, preparing the way, lighting the path, and walking beside you. We just talked about how faith can lift us above fear and lead us forward even when we can't see the full picture. Now, let's take that faith one step further toward understanding that your purpose remains secure, even in uncertain seasons. There are moments in life when the future feels like a foggy path you can't see more than a few steps ahead, and your heart begins to question, am I really on the right track? Did I miss my chance? Did I already mess up what God had planned for me? It's easy to feel lost when nothing seems clear. But hear this truth today. Your purpose is not lost. It is held firmly in the hands of a sovereign God. You are not wandering aimlessly. You are not here by accident. From the very beginning of time, God has known you, your name, your calling, your destiny. He handcrafted your gifts, planted talents deep inside your soul, and wrote a purpose over your life that no one else can fulfill. Even if you can't see the big picture, your purpose is unfolding step by step according to God's perfect plan. Think about Queen Esther. She was just an ordinary girl thrust into an extraordinary situation. She didn't ask for the spotlight. She didn't seek out the pressure of saving an entire people. But God had a purpose waiting for her, and when the time came, she rose to meet it. Even when Esther didn't fully understand what was ahead, her purpose remained secure. And the same is true for you. Your purpose is not dependent on how smooth your journey has been. It's not tied to your circumstances, your past mistakes, or your current doubts. It is anchored in a greater truth. God has already prepared good works for you to walk in. Ephesians 2:10. You may not have the full map. You may feel unsure about your next move. But the steps you're taking today, yes, even the hard, quiet, unseen ones are leading you toward the purpose God designed for you long before you were born. Don't let confusion or temporary setbacks convince you that your purpose has been delayed or denied. God's plan for you is unshakable. He is always working behind the scenes, beyond the spotlight, arranging every detail, opening the right doors, and closing the ones that don't serve your destiny. So stand firm today, even in the waiting, even in the wilderness, even when the path ahead looks uncertain, because every moment matters in the unfolding of your calling. Now, let's talk about something that often gets in the way of stepping into that calling: change. Change. Just the word can stir up discomfort. It's one of the most unsettling concepts we face as human beings. Why? Because we're wired to seek stability. We like routines, predictability, and control. And when change knocks on our door, we often react with fear instead of faith. But hear me clearly today. Change is not your enemy. It is God's tool for transformation. God doesn't shake up your life just to make it interesting. He allows change because He's preparing you for something greater. When He shifts your situation, it's not a sign of something wrong. It's a signal that something new, something better is on the way. You may not be able to see it yet, but God does. He knows the exact outcome He's leading you to. The change you're afraid of today might be the very door that leads you into your next level. Let's revisit Abraham. When God told him to leave everything familiar and journey to a land he didn't even know, Abraham obeyed without a map, without all the answers. It was uncomfortable. It was unfamiliar. But that leap of obedience opened the door to divine promise. Change was the beginning of his breakthrough. When change comes your way, the temptation will be to cling to the old, to grip what's familiar. But growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. God often calls us to step into the unknown, not to punish us, but to position us. Because it's in the unfamiliar that faith grows, His power is revealed, and new opportunities are born. So don't resist the shift. Don't fear the transition. Let go of the old season with open hands, and step into the new with open faith. Yes, change can be uncomfortable, sometimes even painful, but when God leads you into it, it always carries purpose. Trust this. He never brings you somewhere new without preparing you for it. Embrace the change. Lean into it. Because with change comes new strength, deeper wisdom, and blessings beyond what you imagine. Don't be afraid of what's next. God is already there, waiting for you. And now, let's confront another common lie, that your present struggle has the final word. In the next part, we'll discover why your current circumstances do not determine your destiny. Stay with me, because what's coming will reshape how you view your present and your future. We've talked about change, that it's not the enemy, but God's tool to open the way for you to something greater. Now let's dig deeper into another truth. You are not defined by your present. Just because you're walking through a hard season now, doesn't mean that's where you'll remain. Just because your circumstances today are filled with difficulty, doesn't mean your story ends here. Your future is not bound by your current challenges. God is the God of turnarounds. He specializes in restoring, redeeming, and repositioning his people in ways we could never plan or predict. Think about Joseph once again. He was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and left to rot in prison. If you looked at just that chapter, you'd think his life was over. But God wasn't finished. Joseph chose to trust that where he was didn't define who he was or where he was going. And God used those very dark moments to place Joseph exactly where he needed to be, in the palace, saving a nation. The prison didn't define Joseph's story, God did. And that same truth applies to you today. Whatever you're facing right now, pain, silence, frustration, or even failure, remember this: your future is in God's hands. Yes, your circumstances may be loud, convincing you that you're stuck, delayed, or forgotten. But God's voice speaks louder. You are being shaped, positioned, and prepared for the purpose I've set before you. This moment is not the whole book. It's only a chapter. So don't let today's struggle convince you that your future is limited. Don't let the weight of today rob you of the hope for tomorrow. God is moving behind the scenes, beyond what you can see. He is arranging people, opportunities, and moments that will align with your calling. The best is not behind you. The best is ahead. Your future with God is full of peace, purpose, and abundance. And in a world obsessed with instant gratification, one powerful trait is often overlooked: perseverance. We're surrounded by shortcuts. We want results now. But in the kingdom of God, growth often happens slowly, layer by layer, step by step. It's easy to start strong when the wind is at your back. But what about when the skies are silent? When progress feels invisible? When prayers seem unanswered? That's where perseverance is born. God is not only interested in your destination, He's deeply invested in your journey. Even when it feels like you're standing still, He is still working. Every step you take in faith, every moment you keep going when it would be easier to quit, that is part of His perfect design. Think about the Apostle Paul. His life was filled with obstacles, shipwrecks, beatings, imprisonment, rejection. He had every reason to quit, but he didn't. Why? Because he knew God was using even the worst days to advance His purpose. Through Paul's perseverance, we received letters that now strengthen believers around the world. What if Paul had given up halfway? What would we have missed? Perseverance is not just enduring hardship, it's allowing God to shape you in the fire. So when you're tempted to throw in the towel, when you feel like the battle is too long, too hard, remember, God is not done with you yet. He's still refining, still preparing, still setting you up for the breakthrough you can't yet see. Keep going. Keep pressing forward. The reward on the other side of perseverance is always greater than the sacrifice it requires. God honors those who refuse to give up. And that leads us to one of the most freeing truths of all. You don't have to carry the burden of control. We live in a world that tells us to plan every detail, calculate every risk, and take charge of our destiny. It tells us that if we can just manage enough, we can guarantee success. But the truth is, trying to control everything only leaves us exhausted. Letting go of control may feel scary, but it's the only way to find true peace. Because peace doesn't come from perfect plans. Peace comes when you surrender the outcome and trust the one who already sees the full picture. Once again, Abraham shows us what it truly means to trust. When God called him to leave behind everything he knew his home, his culture, his comfort, Abraham didn't receive a detailed itinerary. He wasn't handed a map. There were no clear guarantees of what would happen next. What he did have, though, was faith. He surrendered control. He laid down his right to know all the answers. And in return, he stepped into the greatest blessings of his life. When you choose to let go of your own plans, your timelines, your attempts to figure everything out, You open the door for God's perfect will to unfold in your life. Control often gives us a false sense of security. It makes us feel like if we just hold on tightly enough, we'll stay safe. But the truth is, God's security is far greater than anything we could create for ourselves. He holds your future, your path, and your destiny in His hands. When you let go, you're not giving up. You're handing your life over to the one who sees the beginning, the end, and everything in between. Surrender says, God, I trust that you know what's best, even when I don't understand it. So today, release that burden of control. Let go of the weight you were never meant to carry. Lay down your fears, your anxieties, your rigid plans, and trust that the same God who called Abraham is also calling you forward. And when you do that, you'll begin to see how God works in ways far beyond anything you could have orchestrated on your own. Have you ever found yourself dreaming big? Thinking about the future? Imagining all the great things that could unfold in your life? That's beautiful. But here's the truth, God's dreams for you are even bigger. Sometimes we get so locked into our own vision that we forget just how vast and limitless God's plans truly are. Our dreams are shaped by our experiences, our knowledge, and what we've seen so far. But God? He sees it all. He knows exactly what we need. He knows what will stretch us, what will grow us, and what will ultimately glorify His name through our lives. What seems impossible to you is not even difficult for Him. Remember Joseph again. As a young boy, he dreamed of greatness of leadership and honor. But even those dreams, as grand as they were only a glimpse of what God had in store. Joseph couldn't have imagined that his journey would lead him to Egypt, to the palace, to a position of power that would save not only his family, but an entire nation. God's plans for Joseph were immeasurably greater than the dreams Joseph had in his youth. And that same truth applies to you. Whatever plans you've made, whatever dreams you've dared to dream, God is dreaming even bigger. He's preparing something that's beyond your comprehension. As it says in Ephesians, "Now to Him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work within us." If you could catch even a glimpse of the future God is preparing for you, it would take your breath away. So don't hold too tightly to your own limited vision. Surrender your plans to Him, knowing that the best is not behind you, it's ahead. God is taking you places you've never imagined, places that will draw you closer to Him and reveal His purpose for your life more clearly than ever before. But what about when the journey feels lonely? What about those moments when you're stepping into the unknown and it feels like no one sees, no one understands, and you're walking this road all alone? Let me tell you something that will change how you see the wilderness. You are never alone. One of the greatest fears we face is the fear of being alone, especially in seasons of uncertainty. When the path is unclear, when the next step feels terrifying, it's easy to believe that no one's beside you. But here's the promise. God is. He said in His word, "I will never leave you nor forsake you." And He meant it. In every moment of waiting, in every shadow of doubt, in every step forward that feels shaky, He is there. Think of Moses. When God called him to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, Moses was overwhelmed. He doubted himself. He questioned his calling. But God didn't leave him to figure it out alone. God said, "I will be with you." And God kept that promise even in the wilderness, even when Moses felt unqualified, even when the journey felt impossible. So today, if you feel like you're walking alone, remind yourself, you are not. And in the next part, we'll discover how God's presence in the unknown is not just a comfort, but a powerful force that leads, protects, and provides. Let's keep moving forward, because what comes next will show you how to recognize His hand, even in your most uncertain moments. We just mentioned Moses, a man who felt inadequate and unprepared, but who walked with God's leading. Now, remember this. That same God is walking with you today. Just as God walked beside Moses, guiding him, providing for him, and leading him step by step into the promised land, He is also walking beside you. When you're navigating life's unexpected twists, when you find yourself standing at the edge of uncertainty, unsure what's coming next, don't let fear convince you that you've been abandoned. You haven't. God is right there with you. He surrounds you with His love. He strengthens you when you're weak. And He offers you divine guidance when the path seems invisible. You may feel overwhelmed. You may wonder if you'll make it through. But know this, you are not alone. You have a faithful God who walks with you, not just behind you, not just ahead of you, but right beside you. So when loneliness creeps in, when fear rises and your vision feels clouded, when the silence around you makes you doubt whether anyone is listening, remember this truth. God has already gone ahead of you to prepare the way. And He will never stop walking with you through every moment of the journey. In moments of confusion and seasons of silence, there's one thing that holds you steady like an anchor in a raging storm: hope. And not just any kind of hope. This is the unshakable, unchanging hope that comes from the promises of God. Unlike fleeting emotions or temporary highs, God's promises are not based on how we feel or what we see. They are rooted in His eternal truth, unchanging and dependable, even when everything around us shifts. When you put your hope in God's promises, you are anchoring your soul to something far stronger than your current circumstances. You're placing your trust in a God who has never broken a promise and never will. Look throughout Scripture and you'll find a long line of men and women who stood in the gap between the promise and the fulfillment. Abraham and Sarah waited for a child. Noah built the ark long before the rain. David was anointed king years before he wore a crown. They each faced uncertainty, opposition, and delay, but they clung to what God had spoken, and God was faithful. Remember the Israelites in Egypt. They were oppressed, mistreated, and enslaved. To the human eye, their situation looked hopeless, but God had promised deliverance and He delivered. He split the Red Sea. He led them through the wilderness, and eventually He brought them into the land He had sworn to give them. Their reality didn't match the promise until it did. And the same is true for you. Today, you may be in a season of waiting. You may not see how things will come together, but the promise still stands. God still promises to guide you, to provide for you, and to give you a future filled with hope. So don't give up hope. Hope in God is not wishful thinking. It is confident expectation that what He has spoken over your life will come to pass. You don't need to see the full picture. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to believe in the one who does. Because your future isn't built on your performance, it's secured by His faithfulness. Pause for a moment. Breathe. Where are you right now? Are you in a season of waiting? A moment of decision? A place where the road ahead looks more like a question mark than a straight line? It's okay. You're not alone. And you don't have to figure everything out by yourself. God knows exactly what's next. You may feel like you're walking blind, but He sees the end from the beginning. He's already preparing you, shaping you, and making a way even when it feels like nothing is moving. His timing, perfect. His plan, flawless. His love for you, unshakable. So if today feels heavy, if progress feels slow, if you've started to wonder whether God has forgotten you, remember, He hasn't. He's refining you, strengthening you, setting the stage for something greater than you can imagine. We've talked about holding on to hope that even if you don't see the door opening, God is preparing something big for you. And now, let your heart truly rest in this truth. He is preparing you for the very blessings He has in store for you. Even if you can't see it right now, God is working behind the scenes, strengthening your faith, developing your character, and positioning you for blessings you haven't even imagined. Sometimes it's not about knowing the full picture. It's about trusting the one who holds the brush. So let go of fear. Release the doubt. Stop trying to make sense of every twist and turn. God's promises are true, and they are not dependent on your understanding. They are anchored in His unchanging nature. You are on a journey. And no, you may not know what tomorrow holds. You may not know which doors will open, what obstacles lie ahead, or how it will all come together. But here's what you can hold on to. God knows. He sees the steps you can't. He's walking ahead of you, preparing what's next even as He walks beside you in the now. His plans for your life are greater than anything your mind could possibly dream up. And no matter how uncertain today feels, no matter how quiet it seems around you, the truth still remains. The best is yet to come. So keep walking forward step by step, day by day, even when the road ahead is wrapped in fog. Even when you feel unsure, even when the path isn't lit the way you'd hoped. God is faithful, and He never wastes a single step. Keep holding on to faith even when you can't see the next turn. Because God is not improvising your future. He's designing it with purpose, peace, and power. He's crafting a future that is rich with meaning, full of favor, and overflowing with grace. A future that's brighter than you can possibly comprehend. A future that leads you closer to His heart and into the fullness of your calling. So as we close this message, let this truth settle deeply into your spirit. No matter where you are today, your tomorrow is already in God's hands. He knows what's next. And when you place your trust in Him, He will lead you to places you never even thought possible. Keep the faith. Hold on to hope. Walk with confidence. Because your future is not uncertain when it's placed in the hands of the one who holds eternity. And remember this, the journey is far from over. In fact, it's only just beginning.